Good evening. Welcome to Fine Print. I'm Molly Gambhir. India is voting to elect its next government. In fact, the first day of polling culminated this evening. Tensions with Pakistan have been part of the political discourse in the run-up to these crucial elections. And Pakistan is now trying to interfere, it seems, in the Indian elections. On the eve of the first phase of polling in India, the media wing of Pakistan's armed forces took hand-picked foreign journalists to Balakot in Pakistan, the site of India's airstrikes. They took them up the Jabba top and to a madrasa or a seminary. Pakistan's ISPR claimed that close to 200 students were studying in that seminary. They were trying to show that the Balakot seminary was intact and that India's strikes failed. But their claim fell flat because the very same man, the DG ISPR, had said there were no seminaries in the region right after India's airstrikes. Also, the point to note here is the timing. Why did Pakistan take these journalists to the site a full 6 weeks after India struck the Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camp in Balakot? What's worse now is that the journalists were taken to an orchestrated scene. Journalists from Reuters were among those who were taken to visit that seminary in Balakot. Reuters reported the journalists and diplomats did not get enough time to make any kind of informed assessment. The report said the journalists were mostly restricted to looking around the madrasa's main building and were not allowed to interact with the staff and students much. The journalists were then hurried away by the army, which organized the trip after less than half an hour. That's how long that supposed tour lasted. Another reason why Pakistan's little trip is just a gimmick was they waited for 6 weeks to take journalists to that site. Why wait until the eve of elections in India to allow access? The site was struck on February 26th. What stopped Pakistan from opening the site up right after the airstrike? Some would say that it is an indirect interference by Islamabad. Now, here's another example. 2 days before the process of elections began in India, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan made a politically loaded statement. Imran Khan said that the chances of India-Pakistan resuming dialogue are higher if Narendra Modi is re-elected as Prime Minister. He said, and I'm quoting, perhaps if the BJP, a right-wing party, wins, some kind of settlement in Kashmir could be reached. That's what he said. What motive could Imran Khan have to make such a statement? His comments opened a floodgate of reactions, of course. Some politicians asked the BJP and Narendra Modi government what their thoughts were on the offer. Some others made it clear that the Pakistani Prime Minister had no business interfering in India's elections. And that's what it was, interference. Why else would Imran Khan whip up such sentiments ahead of the elections? The current mood in India is such that a party that is seen to be warming up to Pakistan could face a setback. And joining us on the broadcast this evening, further perspectives on that story is a retired U.S. Army Colonel Lawrence Sellon. Thanks very much, Colonel, for speaking with us and taking out the time here on Wion. Let me begin by asking you, what's your assessment of the manner in which that supposed tour in Balakot was managed by Pakistan?
Well, let me start by saying that I think both cases you cited were crude and rather obvious attempts by Pakistan to influence the Indian election. And it does remind me of the heavy-handed tactics that were used in the Soviet Union during the 1930s in terms of propaganda. But specifically about the Balakot incident, it's all the things that you mentioned, is that it occurred 6 weeks after the event. There was a lot of time for Pakistan to sanitize the site. It is also known from locals that the madrasa that was there was closed up until very recently, and these local boys showed up to populate the madrasa, basically, it seems, for this event. And as you say, the visitors to this site were only allowed not longer than 30 minutes. So there was actually absolutely no way for those visitors, those observers, to determine anything. So it clearly was meant, and the timing of it, of course, is meant to influence the Indian election.
So taking a cue from what you just said, would it not be considered ambitious on part of Pakistan to try and interfere in another country's affairs and as sacred as a democratic process, coming at a time also when Pakistan has its own house in complete disarray, citing its economic crisis, for example, citing how it continues to support terrorists on its soil, pending the FATF sword that is hanging on its head as well?
Well, I think it's offensive to any country for another country to attempt to interfere in the elections. As you know, we just went through this for 2 years in the United States, where there was accusations that the Russians had deeply interfered with the election, and there was shown to be the Trump administration was not at all involved in any such things. But India has a right to be angry because it looks deliberate. The other event that you cited was that Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan suggested that one of the parties, Prime Minister Modi's party, would be a better partner for a peace process. Now, this is kind of what we call a backhanded compliment. It was really meant to stir up the opposition in India, the opposition parties that might think that Prime Minister Modi would be weak in any negotiations with Pakistan. And this is certainly not the case.
An attempt that could also backfire when one looks at the state of affairs within Pakistan and also its standing on the international stage.
Yes, indeed. I think it is well known now that, Pakistan harbors terrorists in its country, that these terrorists are attacking Pakistan's neighbors, in particular the Taliban in Afghanistan, and the various terrorist groups that have been frequently attacking India. So I think for Pakistan to now interfere in India's election is not only offensive, but potentially dangerous in terms of international relations.